Hey everyone, in this tutorial we're going to look at sorting layers, and why they're useful. And we're going to do that by putting in a background. So if you don't have a background image, you should probably go find that now. Just pause the video and then we'll continue. Now in our game, you probably see this blue area, and the reason it's showing that blue area is because if I click on my main camera, I have a background option here underneath the camera component that allows me to choose the color. So currently the color is just whatever I decide to choose. That's helpful, but usually we want to choose our own background because it helps with the setting of the game. So in the asset pack I downloaded a couple of videos ago, I have a simple background texture that I'm going to use as my background, and I'm going to drag that out and just expand it. When you drag it out, you make sure it starts a little bit past your starting camera point, so that when you play the game you can actually see all of it. Now that's going all the way through. You may have noticed that when I put this sprite in, it's covered all my grass, my trees, and my coins. And that's just because it's in front of it. Now to prevent this, I can use what's called a sorting layer, which is over here in my sprite renderer. So all of my game objects will have a sprite renderer, and the sorting layer is used traditionally how you would use it in any of the Adobe programs. So if you use Premiere Pro or Photoshop or Illustrator, their version of how layers are used is similar to the sorting layer here, with some major differences. Now you may have noticed that in the inspector there's a layer option up here at the top next to the tag. The layer is used mainly in scripting, so it's to do with physics. So if you do things like ray tracing or anything like that, then you'd use the layer, right? So it's a little bit more advanced for us right now. So we'll stick to the sorting layer, which will just determine how everything will look. And if I click where it says default, I notice that I only have one sorting layer at the moment. I want to add a few sorting layers. So when I add my sorting layers, up here in the inspector I have my tags, my sorting layers, and my layers. Right? Make sure you have the sorting layers one highlighted, and then if you click plus, you'll be able to add a new layer. And we'll probably want one for background. Or we'll call it a foreground for everything in front of it. And then we want one with all our players and enemies. Actually, I'll delete the player and enemy one, and I'll just use the default one for all my players and enemies. Now, unlike Photoshop and Illustrator and most other programs, you actually want your most backwards layer at the top. And the reason is, this is the order in which it gets rendered by the camera. So the camera will come in, draw what's on the background layer first, then draw what's on the foreground layer in front of it, and then the default. Right? I'm sure you get the point. So once that's done, I can click back on my game object, and then now when I go to sorting layers, I can choose where I want it. So I can click in the background, and then I probably want all these other game objects, including my platforms, to be in the foreground layer. Right? And then I want to go to my platforms, and I just want to make sure I update the prefab, and you can also add your background as a prefab if you want. It doesn't really matter. So now when I press play, everything's in the right order. And it's important we get this right now, because we're going to start learning how to spawn bullets and things like that, and we want to make sure we're spawning the bullets on the right layer so we actually see it. Now notice here how my tree and my coin are put together, but my coin is behind my tree. If I want two things to be on the same layer, but I want to arrange in what order of the layer they are, I can give a value to this order in layer section right underneath the sorting layer. So currently my tree is set to 0. I can make that a negative number to push it back. So that's behind the coin. Or I could have left that at 0 and selected the coin and given that a higher number than 0. So the smaller numbers are further in the background and the higher numbers are further in front. And I'll just move it to the side because it blends in too much to the tree. So that's all for this video. If before the next video, if you can get your entire level 1 scene built up, so put in platforms all the way to the end, put in your coins, put in your trees, put in the background, we'll start learning how to fire bullets and, you know, getting our enemies dead, things like that in the next couple of videos.